I'm not qualified to do this. I don't understand the full plan yet. Nobody's going to believe me. I have no proof. I don't have the skills. This isn't for me. Someone else should do it. These are your excuses. And they feel justified, don't they? They feel reasonable, responsible, even. But here's what they really are: worn out, timeless, phony. I'm going to start that again, even though this is live, because we're recording this and we're going to get it right. And I can edit it. Nobody's going to watch anyway. So, I'm not qualified for this. I don't understand the full plan yet. Nobody's going to believe me. I don't have no proof. I don't have any skill. I don't have the skills. I'm just reading this script, and I don't know. I can tell that even looking at this camera that it's all right. I'm not qualified for this. I don't have the full plan yet. I don't have the skills for this. I'm not qualified. Nobody's going to believe me. I have no proof. This isn't for me. So someone else should do it. These are your excuses. They're my excuses, and they feel justified, don't they? They feel even reasonable, responsible even. But here's what they really are: they're worn out, they're timeless, and they're phony. How do I know? Because Moses stood before God at the burning bush 3,500 years ago in the book of Genesis, made the exact same 5 excuses. You know what God said? Go anyway. Every day you wait to feel ready, you're trading irreplaceable time for a false sense of security while you're consuming another course, another certification. The calling on your life is waiting, and while you're mastering one more tech stack, the breakthrough God designed for you stays locked behind inaction. You're not learning just in case. You're supposed to figure it out just in time while you're in motion. You're not preparing, you're confusing preparation with obedience. Here's what you're going to do. We're going to break down each of those 5 excuses through the lens of physics, because math and physics are the universal language God wrote into creation. And what you're going to do is see that your excuses are doing 2 things. They're adding mass, making it harder to start, and they're creating resistance, wasting your energy even when you try. But here's the good news. Once you understand the physics, you can break free. The paths light up while you walk, not before. The path lights up while you walk, not before. Let's go. All right. The math and physics, they're universal. Well, they're universal languages. They don't need deciphering. Anybody of any spoken language can decipher math and physics. God wrote this into creation. It's kind of neat. But everything obeys these laws. Gravity doesn't care about your feelings, but what's wild is that the same laws keeping planets in orbit are keeping you stuck. Therefore, if we understand the physics, we can break free. There are 2 laws keeping you stuck: inertia. Let me bring this up. Inertia. How about inertia? Let's try that again. Inertia. And what that looks like: force equals ma. You may remember this from, come on, force equals mass times acceleration. Do you remember how acceleration is denoted in school? But what it says is an object at rest tends to stay at rest unless acted upon by an external force. So starting from zero equals, you need the most force whenever you're starting at zero. And then whenever you're increasing the mass, but every excuse you make, you're increasing that mass to what you're trying to move. Therefore, the more you prepare, the harder it gets to start. An electrical resistance, V equals IR. Voltage equals the current times the resistance. And so if we're talking about current, yeah, here's how I wanted to make it. But we're talking about electricity. Break that off. Voltage equals the current times the resistance, and voltage is the force pushing the current forward. You could think of that as God's calling, your little voice saying, "Hey, let's do this." Right? In the resistance, what opposes your flow. Okay? But high resistance means that this flow gets dissipated in heat. You're burning up energy, and it's wasted. But you think more preparation will help, but therefore you're actually creating more problems that you're trying to avoid. Let me say that again. Think of an electricity. Voltage equals current times resistance. The force, God's calling, pushing your current, your energy, your direction. The higher the resistance, which would be any excuses that you're making, causes this current to be this energy to be dissipated in heat, anxiety, fear, burnout, overthinking. But you think the more preparation will help. Therefore, you're actually creating the problem you're trying to avoid. So every day you wait, you're compounding both problems: more mass, more resistance. Harder start, more energy wasted. So Moses made 5 excuses. Each one either added mass or added resistance. Let's break them down one by one, starting with the most common. I'm not ready. Yeah, no one is ever ready, right? I mean, seriously, who am I? Who are you? What's the plan? Moses' first excuse: Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? He basically was saying, "Who am I? I'm too small. I'm a nobody. I'm just fooling around here in the desert. I've lost my ability to speak because of just been talking to the animals. I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but God didn't call him because he was qualified. So therefore, God's response is, "I will be with you." Not go get qualified, then come back. Don't get your certifications. Go clean up. You think by preparing more, you're learning more, but every course you add is adding bricks to your backpack. Therefore, you're making it harder, not easier. So let's look at something here. All right, I'm 10 minutes in. All right, we can edit that out. Let's see. All right, so picture this here. Let's say you wanted to walk across the room. You're not going to go and think about, hey, how do I put my one foot in front of the other? Let me go watch 10 tutorials about the best way to walk, the best gait. You just walk across the floor. You just figure it out, right? Another one is, man, I want to, understand how to build a funnel. So let me go take this funnel course, and then you get stuck, trying to figure out how to create the best upsell. But what then you end up doing is you get stuck and you get delayed and you don't end up launching the first funnel to begin with. So here's the thing. You just create your compounding things, and you want to get rid of just in case learning. Forget everything that you've ever been taught. The way you learn is you get in motion. No one's ever going to watch a YouTube video and figure out how to hit a golf ball. You're only going to figure out how to hit a golf ball by going on the range. You're never going to figure out how to play golf until you get on the course and figure out, all right, I got to do everything I can to stay away from the out of bounds on the right and play that terrible slice way out to the left. Okay, there's water in front of me. I got to make sure I get over the water no matter what. And you're not going to figure that stuff out on the range or watching YouTube videos. But every time you watch a YouTube video on a course or learning how to putt, if you just go up and look at the ball and treat it like a basketball and try and hit it in, you're further ahead. So So like I said, you figure it out while you're moving. Therefore, the information you need shows up when you need it, not before. You can only see so far ahead of you with any given lamp or flashlight. In order to see beyond that, you have to take the next step. And here's the next excuse. Moses' second excuse. Who are you and what's the plan? God's answer, I am. I am that I am. But Moses wanted the full roadmap up front. Therefore, God just gave him the next step, not the whole staircase. The Red Sea didn't part until his feet hit the water. Joshua said in 3:15 and 16 said that. Let me pull that up. Let me pull that up. Let's check that out. Joshua 3:15 and 16. And those who bore the ark came to the Jordan, and the feet of the priests who bore the ark dipped in the edge of the water, for the Jordan overflows all its banks during the whole time of harvest, that the waters which came down from upstream stood still and rose in a heap very far away at Adam, the city that is beside Zaratan. So the waters that went down into the Sea of Arabah, the Salt Sea, failed and were cut off, and the people crossed over opposite Jericho. So it wasn't the Red Sea, it was the Jordan. But in any case, that was afterwards. It's interesting. Interesting. Okay. So I'm experimenting with this live software too. It's kind of neat. But Moses, again, back to him. He was interested in getting the whole plan, but God didn't want him to have the whole plan. But he would have stayed stuck had he not told him and got angry with him. So therefore, Moses finally said, "Okay, let's go. Can I take my brother with me, Aaron?" And they finally got it up and put a hitch in their giddy up. And so adding mass is one problem, but there's a second way. Your excuses are sabotaging you. And this is the one that's even more insidious. No one will believe me. What if they don't believe me? Moses' third excuse hits different because this one feels wise. What if they don't believe me? I have no proof. I have no credibility. I've got no track record, but this sounds reasonable, right? Who's going to listen to a guy who's been herding sheep in the desert for 40 years, right? Therefore, Moses thinks he needs proof before he goes. And so if we go back to the electrical physics, voice or voltage equals and current time divided by, or so current equals voltage divided by resistance. Voltage being God's calling on your life, the force pushing you forward, but high resistance equals minimal current and very little actual movement. So if I put it back into this is getting kind of neat. If we do this the right way, the current equals voltage divided by resistance. The higher this number, the lower this gets. So let's say your resistance is 10 and the voltage is 10. Let's just say your current is 1. But if your same voltage is 10, but your resistance gets higher, then you're only at 10% of what you could be operating. And I know these are, not the amps, but still it's a metaphor. But high resistance equals minimal current, very little actual movement. Therefore, even with a strong calling, this is low. Your movement is low if you're adding resistance and keeping things off balance. The energy is wasted. Power equals I squared R. And high resistance means energy's lost as heat. You think you're working hard, consuming courses, overthinking, planning, but all that energy is converted into wasted heat, anxiety, burnout, mental exhaustion. Therefore, nothing converts to actual work, actual results. Imagine an electric circuit with a massive resistor in it. You plug it in, the voltage is there, the power source is ready, but because the resistance, barely any current flows, instead the resistor gets hot, it's burning energy, but producing nothing useful. Therefore, you're exhausted, burned out, mentally fried, but you have zero results to show for it. That's what I have no proof does to you. So I think I need more testimonials before I can sell. I need an audience before I can create content. Obviously, you don't. You can create the content. Maybe the audience will show up, but the better you get, that's at some point someone will watch something. Nobody knows who I am yet. It's probably a good thing because your content stinks, and I'm just speaking on for myself. But you're waiting for proof that it only comes from motion. Therefore, you're stuck in a feedback loop. Here's the vicious cycle. You think, once I have credibility, then I'll have low resistance and things will flow. But the resistance is what's preventing the motion that creates credibility. Therefore, you're stuck waiting for something that can come only until you move. God gave Moses signs, turned his staff into a snake, leprous hand, and water into blood, but Moses still had to go first. The signs were for during the journey, not before. Therefore, God was saying, I'll give you what you need while you obey, not before, while you're in motion. Here's what actually happened. Moses went. Pharaoh didn't believe him anyway. The signs didn't convince him. How many of those did he need? Good grief. The design resistance distinction. Now, here's what's wild about the resistance. Engineers put resistors in electronics on purpose. Why? It's to regulate the current. Without them, too much flow would burn out the system. In the gym, you need resistance to get strong, right? But there's a difference between an excuse-based resistance and designed resistance that's meant to regulate flow, strengthens you while you're moving. Therefore, the question is, do I have resistance? What type of resistance? It's all meant for you. It's all meant for the system. All right, adding mass, creating resistance, both problems, but there's one excuse that does both, and that's probably the one you're using right now. I don't have the skills. I'm not eloquent, slow of speech. This is the excuse that feels most justified. Moses says, I'm not eloquent, I'm slow of speech. I've never been good with words. And honestly, he might have been right. Maybe he did have a speech impediment. But that's exactly why the excuse is so dangerous. Therefore, it feels true, so you don't question it. The compound physics problem, the excuse does both. It adds mass and creates resistance. I need to develop this skill before I start with more courses, more practice in private, more preparation in it. And in the resistance, energy is waste. My inadequacy blocks the flow. Energy is wasted on self-doubt, overthinking instead of doing burnout from trying to be perfect first. Therefore, you've engineered a physics problem that feels impossible to solve. So I'm not good on camera. Okay, get good on camera. You won't get good on camera until you get on camera. I don't understand the tech. I don't understand this particular software, this EV Mux that I'm using right now, but it looks pretty cool. It seems to do. If I could get rid of that thing right up here, I mean, can I point at it? Yeah, if I can get rid of that, I'll need to pay. But at the same time, it's doing what it needs to do, and it gives me a trial to check it out. I'm not a natural writer, speaker, marketer. I don't know if anyone is. The tech overwhelms me. Too many tools, too many problems. Yeah, you could simplify it though and do the minimum viable option. So here's what this looks like in real life. You know you need to create content. So you think I better get better at video first. So you take a camera course, you take a lighting course, you take all these YouTube videos, but they just bog you down and make you stuck even further. Meanwhile, someone who's worse than you and who at everything posted their first messy video 4 months ago, and they made their first $1,000 and they've improved through the reps. But you're better prepared than they are, right? Therefore, you still haven't started. It's the math of impossibility. If I go back to the force equals mass, force equals mass times acceleration. This is what's, is what God is providing and what your movement provides. And these are the excuses and, your skill set as it is right now. And your excuses. So the lower you can get these excuses, the better this is going to turn out. Okay, talk about not knowing what you're doing. Moses wasn't in the book of Genesis. He was in Exodus. I don't know what I was thinking of. I mean, we don't get to Moses until after Joseph. I mean, and so if I correct myself, we're talking about the creation, which is one of the coolest things ever, and then Noah building the ark, and then his descendants, Abraham, Isaac, and then Joseph. Joseph being a prisoner under in Pharaoh's jail until he was anointed, and then second in command, and is having had his brothers throwing him in the pit and selling him as a slave, or but not even getting sold as a slave, but getting picked up and then getting into Pharaoh's favor, and then his brothers coming back and getting under in Egypt under his protection. But then after he passed away, all of uh, having had all of the Israelites, all of the people sell everything that they have to be under their control, because Joseph, at the end of the day, was uh, as wise as he was. And then Moses comes along in Exodus to, long story short, lead the people out of Egypt after they have been turned into slaves, because there was a new Pharaoh that had come along. The Pharaoh under Joseph had died, and Joseph had died, and so the new Pharaoh was, like, hey, we're going to make you slaves. So Moses in Exodus was leading them out, and so God's response to Moses is wild. It's in Exodus 4:11. If we pull it up here, 4:11. So the Lord said to him, "Who has made man's mouth, or who makes the mute, the deaf, the seeing, or the blind? Have not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall say." But he said, "O Lord, please send by the hand of whomever else you may send." Your limitations are my opportunity to show up. But Moses wanted to fix the limitation first. Therefore, God said, "No, go with the limitation. I'll take care of it." And here's what happened. God gave Moses Aaron to be his spokesman, and that's in 14 and 16. So the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, "Is not Aaron the Levite, your brother? I know that he can speak well, and look, he is also coming out to meet you. When he sees you, he will be glad in heart. Now you shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and I will teach you what you shall do." There you go. Bingo, bingo, bango. The, the provision came after Moses said yes, not before. Therefore, God provides helpers, tools, solutions while you move. Without friction is what you need. Remember, you need friction to move. I mean, you can't walk without friction. A vehicle can't stay on the road without friction. Without the ground under feet, without friction, you just slip and slide on the ice. Think about it. Without friction, you can't drive. You just spin out. Without air resistance, even planes, the air provides the resistance. There's nothing without the air. There's nothing to create lift. So the resistance isn't your enemy. It's your launch pad. But here's the distinction. It's the resistance, the ground you're walking on, or the chain to your ankles. Is this resistance the road under your tires, the parking brake still engaged? Is this resistance the air creating lift, or the dead weight keeping you grounded? Therefore, you have to answer, what type of resistance is this? All right, so where am I? I'm looking at my notes. And I've got something here I bet I could bring it up this way. I still am sharing my screen. So let's do this. If I go to my Kindle, there's a book by the name of Stephen Pressfield. Where is it? I'm going to show it to you. Come on. All right, so that's the cover. It's called Do the Work. He wrote a few other books. Overcome resistance and get out of your own way. He's also the author of The War of Art. This was written a little while ago. He's not much of a, I don't think he's much of a Christian, but that aside, he says, turn off your feelings. He's like, just be a professional, show up sick, tired, depleted, get the work done. He's right about discipline, but he misses what Moses learned. You're not just muscling through with discipline, you're moving in dependence on God who provides while you go. Therefore, it's both discipline to start moving, independence to receive the provision while moving. Hmm. Here's one for you. Perfect execution isn't required. Obedient motion is. Okay. We got 4 excuses down, but there's one more. And this one reveals what's really going on underneath all the others. If I go back to I don't want to lose my screen share. Moses' 5th and final excuse, please, Lord, send someone else. That's again for Exodus 4:13. We kind of just did we skip it? No, I kind of skipped over it, but it was 4:13. But he said, "Oh my Lord, please send by the hand of whomever else you may send." If I didn't read it, there it is again. He got angry for the first time in the entire conversation. Why? Because excuse 1 through 4 were practical objections, but the 5th one was revealing the truth. He was unwilling. I don't want to. Someone else is better suited. Fear dressed up as humility is a good one. That's a good excuse. But 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 Moses crossed the line with that one, from preparation to into disobedience. This isn't really my calling. I'll support others doing this. Maybe in a few years when my kids are older, when I have more savings, and when the timing's better. The ultimate hiding place is humility as a cover for disobedience. Um, the heart reveals all the previous excuses were about the obstacles, but this one reveals that you're the obstacle. It's not that you can't, it's that you won't. But that feels too harsh to admit. Therefore, you frame it as wisdom or practicality or pragmatism, or I'm not presumptuous, or humility. No, you're confusing the preparation with obedience. So let me tell you what this looks like. God's been poking you just to start a business or get it moving and get it going. You feel it. You won't leave it alone, but you've built an entire case for why now isn't the time. Kids are too young. I got to learn some stuff. Job is stable. I don't have enough saved. The market's too crowded. The football games are on. It's golf season. All are true and reasonable, but underneath every one of those is the same thing. What if I fail? Therefore, you stay stuck. You stay in Egypt because Egypt is known. The couch is known. Even if it's slavery, at least you know what to expect. The physics of breaking free, it's the external force is required. That's Newton's law. You can't create the force to overcome your own inertia. That's why it's obedience, not just discipline. So, like in this book, do the work. It's the discipline that gets you to the edge, but it's God's command that pushes you over. It's his providence that sees things. I'll give you just a little bit of an example. I was unwilling a few years ago to just kind of go out and not that I was unwilling. I just was looking for better ways to get some sales made for my business, and it just wasn't working. So it just kind of came down to it. All right, I just got to go see some people, go bang on some doors, and as uncomfortable as it is, and it's not even really uncomfortable. It's just looking for ways of creating some leverage. But I had to go back to the basics just to get some traction. And everything that I did in that particular day went nowhere. But the very next day, in this particular case, a sale came in out of nowhere, out of nothing that I had produced. But again, it was just God working and seeing that we're obedient to follow the path and get moving. And so there you go. Where am I in my little notes here? Every excuse you surrender to, it's lowering the resistance. Every yes to God's increasing the flow. So therefore, energy stops being wasted as heat and starts converting to work. The final part of the physics is for flight. Remember, you need air to fly. That's the medium. That's what planes work in. It's not going to work in a vacuum. That's why up at the heights of like Everest, helicopters can't fly because there's no resistance. There's no air. The air isn't thick enough. And so the air creates the lift that pushes you up, and it at the same time pushes you back. You can't have one without the other. But here's the key. While you're on the ground making excuses, you don't get either. There's no lift, there's no drag. You're just dead weight. Therefore, you don't get to experience what the resistance actually does until you're in motion. The same medium that creates the friction creates the flight. In business, the market is your air. Real customers, real problems, real challenges. If they weren't there, there would be nothing to work with. But while you're hiding and just in case learning, you're not in the market. Therefore, there is no lift. There's no growth. You're just stuck. The moment Moses went, Exodus 4:18-20, not because he felt ready, not because he had all the skills, not because he understood the plan, not because he was eloquent. He went because God said, go. It's enough. Quit fooling around. And watch what happened while he moved. The Red Sea parted, got water from the rock when they were thirsty in their travels. Manna appeared daily, just enough for the day. And Aaron showed up. God didn't give him everything up front. It wasn't there all up front. He gave it to him as he needed it, just in time, not just in case. The two types of resistance. Let me bring it all together. And if I go back, I mean, there were so many plagues that God brought on Pharaoh. You get tired of reading them, but finally, Pharaoh relented whenever all of the firstborn were killed. But in any case, it took that to that extreme. But let's see, where am I here? So there's two types of excuses, right? There's the type that you create, and then type that are made for the circumstances. They're what you face while you're moving. When Pharaoh says no, when the Red Sea is in the way, the real market challenges, the real problems you have to face, the real voice you have to create, the real content you have to create, the real ideas, the tech, the courage to just say go. But you still have to choose: is this preparation or is this disobedience? Because there's a line. Moses found it whenever he ticked God off. Do you know what God's calling to do, and are you refusing? If you don't know, fine, seek clarity. But if you do know, and you're waiting for one more sign, one more skill, one more perfect condition, you're delaying everything. I'm delaying everything. If I were to wait for this video to have it all squared away and ready to go, and and before I hit publish, before I hit broadcast, I mean, because what I'll do is I'll just take this video after the broadcast, download it, and then edit it. But you get to see it. You get to see raw creation, the raw version of it. And there's something to creation. Again, I've said this before. Creation in and of itself is messy. In the beginning of Genesis, God said, uh, "Be fruitful and multiply, subdue the earth, fill the earth, and subdue it, and trample it down, and then have dominion." So you have to go and create chaos first. You have to provide the disruption in order to get the dominion and have dominion. So every day you wait, it's irreplaceable time that you don't get back. It's traded for a false security. The calling on your life stays locked. The blessings stay locked. You're not competing with others. That's a misconception. This is about stewarding what God gave you. The multiplication you're designed that you're supposed to have it requires the motion. The garden principle, because God designed wealth to multiply through consumption, but first you have to plant, and planting requires you to move. So what's one thing that God's been telling you to do? The ground is there, the road is there, the obstacles are there, the air is there. Stop adding the chains, but get rid of the parking brake, get rid of the dead weight. Moses went, God show up, it's your turn. So that's all I got for this one. If you're if you're a business owner stuck in tech, overwhelmed, drowning in courses, waiting to feel ready, I mean, this is your sign. The breakthrough you're waiting for is on the other side of the mess. It's not perfect motion; it's obedient motion. Get moving, get busy. I'm David Bridge Jr. If this video helped you, blessed you, leave a comment. So, I'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, till the next one. Thanks.